Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to EV Nickel's channel, accelerating the transition to the clean energy future, discovering battery metals. Joining us, we have the pleasure of the Chief Executive Officer, as always, Sean Samson. It's a pleasure to have you back, sir.
Super, great to be here.
Yeah, so we got lots to dive down into. It's been nice to try and get some updates off you here, because maybe first and foremost, EV Nickel targets large-scale nickel potential of your Carmen-Langmuir area that we've talked about previously in the past. But give us some updates here on what we can expect out of the future.
Yeah, so that was us. As we've mentioned, we're going through all the historical data we have. We're trying to figure out as much as we can about the land prior to putting our extensive drills on site and begin drilling. And we've talked in the past about how interesting the EM, the airborne flyover, has been. And this week we put out a press release started tying each of the bits together. So that includes, there's been a lot of ground sampling that's been done across this property. So those are showings up to surface that historically groups have been able to go in, and this is all in the filings. This is us just going through all the public filings on the property. And there's really interesting grade across an enormous anomaly from the airborne. So it's overlaying the airborne data we have with a bunch of grab samples, and we are really excited about that. So we put that out in a press release at the beginning of this week, and it compares really favorably to other low-grade, large-scale type deposits, and in particular, Canada Nickel's Crawford property. It seems like it's a very similar type of geology with a couple major differences. Ours have showings up to surface, theirs averages 40 meters of overburden to go through. So we know that from the get-go. It seems though the mineralization is closer to surface. And then the second thing is, when you look at our maps in comparison to the total size of their main zone, we seem to have potentially multiples of their main zone on our hands. So it's super exciting. We've jammed through all of the information we have already, and we're even more gunned up to get in there and start drilling. And the other really neat part is that we have now just received our permits to do that exploration. So we can roll the drills right in, got those in hand. Secondly, the entire area has been recently clear cut by the forestry business. So over the past few years, they've improved access tremendously. Our guys have driven all around this property up in the northeastern part of the land we have by pickup truck, which just, it leads to us being able to better understand it. And then when we get the drills in there later this summer, it'll be very easy access. And again, we're going to be going, outcrop to outcrop this week, starting with our own sampling from surface. We'll run those through the lab. We'll have results hopefully in June. But I think that's just going to confirm a bunch of historical work that's been done. And it really sets up for very interesting drilling, which we'll begin on later in the summer.
I appreciate those clerical insights there. I feel like you guys are heading into a pivotal moment for EV Nickel. And you're also trying to take, I guess, the ESG approach as well. You launched a clean nickel strategy and initiated research into decarbonization on the production side of it. What does that entail?
Yeah, so we're really excited about that. In the DNA of our company is we are trying to step in on this metal, which is required for decarbonization. So that's really what drives the company. So in terms of the new demand for nickel, which we've spoken about a bunch, the big game changer in nickel is going to be the increased demand, the requirement for nickel to go into batteries for electric vehicles. But then if you think about the way that we operate, we want to be pulling the nickel out of the ground and then recovering the nickel with the lowest possible carbon cost. Now, we want to do that because it's the right thing to do. We also want to do that because the buyers of nickel, the new buyers of nickel at the electric vehicle companies, the battery companies, they require the lowest possible carbon cost for their inputs, including the metal they buy for the batteries. So it's a really nice mesh. The reason we're so excited about the nickel business generally is because of decarbonization. And we're also going to use that as a lens, questioning everything we do in the nickel business to try and get the lowest possible carbon score attached to the nickel that we intend to sell to the battery companies. So again, it's in the DNA of the company. We're rethinking everything, and we're really excited about a bunch of the work we've done where we're funding new research in a few different areas, which includes we're going to electrify all of our operations. We'll have more news about that as we better understand it ourselves. But we're in a part of the world that draws on clean hydropower. So everything we electrify has a very low carbon cost attached to it. Then we'll do stuff like ore sortation. So from our different deposits, we will again use electricity to try to sort the rock. And we have a lot of experience about this from our past life in working in the quarry business. We'll want to apply that to mining to try to raise the head grade as best we can before sending the rock from the ore source to processing. And then once we're into processing, we're taking a look at really interesting bioleaching technology that is done currently around the world for base metal recovery, specifically within copper. And then finally, with our waste rock and our tailings, there's an opportunity for carbon sequestration. So the capture of carbon from the atmosphere, both passive. So our rock, our special geology, when it's exposed to the atmosphere, draws in CO2, which is really neat. So we're analyzing that with the smartest people in the business with that, a lab at University of British Columbia. So they're quantifying how much carbon we can capture, both passive and then also potentially ramping that up by pumping certain gases into waste rock to really speed up that sequestration, so pulling carbon out of the air. So it's all parts of our business. We're rethinking how we do things, how we can do things. And again, it's part of the DNA for the company. And it's the reason that we're excited about nickel is generally because of decarbonization and the people we're going to sell our nickel to make those electric vehicle batteries. They're doing it for the decarbonization. And then within our business, we'll rethink everything we do and try to have the lowest possible carbon score to the nickel that we produce.
I really feel like you guys are setting yourselves up on multiple fronts to not only be appealing to the EV companies, but also obviously the ESG funds and a lot of these investors that strictly kind of play around with the idea of decarbonization. But this is incredible, man. I definitely appreciate these insights, and I hope the viewers appreciate it as well. As I pass the question off to you guys, we'd love to know what you think about all this in that comment section below. Consider subscribing, because as this news continues to come down the wire, of course, we'll update you here. But on that note, stay cool, stay awesome, and as always, I look forward to catching you in the next one.